Hello and welcome to this episode of T-Tech. This is part 1 of 3 in our OpenBSD CARP series. In this part, we're going to talk about what CARP and PFSYNC are, what they do, and why we need them. I do hope you enjoy this one, and let's get into it. Hello and welcome to our introduction. Now, what are we talking about today? Well, we're talking about network redundancy. So, we're going to achieve this with a first hop redundancy protocol called CARP. Now, CARP stands for Common Address Redundancy Protocol, and that just means that more than one computer, basically, or router in our case, can share an IP address. Normally, you have one IP address per computer. In this case, they share one virtual IP address. Now, that virtual IP address is assigned to a group. So up here, the VHID 10, that's our group for our LAN. And the routers in that group, or servers, can manage this IP, the virtual IP address, the CARP VIP LAN. Now, they do have normal IPs. The 192.168.1.2 is the normal IP for R1, and vice versa for R2. But they need to be in a group to manage the virtual IP. Now, only one of them will own that IP at a time. But that's decided by the state of master or backup. The deciding factor in that is something called the advertised skew. And up here, R1 has an advertised skew of 0. So, because he is 0, he's going to take over the master role. And R2 has the advertised skew of 100. 100 is more than 0, so that means that he'll become the backup because the lowest one is preferred. Now, how does this all work in practice? Well, this will make more sense coming up. You'll notice down here with our PCs are configured with the VIP. Alright, and remember how we just spoke, only one replies to the VIP. So if PC1 starts to want to send, he has to find the default gateway's MAC address. So he sends an ARP request for that VIP. He does not know that though, by the way. The PCs are unaware. They do not know about this protocol. He gets a reply from the VIP, but only from the master because he is in the master role. And when he wants to send his packet through the network, his source MAC, because we're on Ethernet, is 333. That's a shortened version, of course, so just not to confuse you. The destination MAC is the virtual MAC address that goes along with the VIP. And that all that gets bundled up, and that's managed with that CARP group. But that's how that goes along with that. And it's otherwise a normal packet. Now, the place where CARP shines and has the network redundancy is when R1 fails. If R1 fails, the hello packets, basically the keep alives, won't be sent to R2. And he's basically going to say, I haven't heard any of them in a while. I'll take over the master role. So remember, even though R2 had the higher advertised skew, and that was less preferred, if he's got the best skew in the entire network with the CARP speakers, he's going to become the master for the CARP group. Alright? So, the thing is, he does go down and take that IP over. So now he's there. And that means that actually PC 1 and 2 don't have to be reconfigured, but they can just send transparently to R2 with no problem whatsoever. But the next part is when R1 comes back up, how does he take back over that master role? Well, there's something called CARP preemption. All this means is if a router or CARP speaker, because this can be implemented on a server as well, if a CARP speaker comes back up with a lower advertised skew than the current master, he can take back over. So in this case, R2 has 100, R1 has 0. He comes back up and says, I'm back. And then R2 will relinquish that, saying okay, and see those advertisements with a lower advertised queue than himself. So R1 takes over the master again. So transparently, PC 1 and 2 start to send to the master on R1 on that VIP. But all this time, remember, the gateway never changed. It's virtual. They manage that in the group. Now, the last part of this is that with our case, we're not just using this on servers. We're using this on firewalls as well. Now, firewalls have pass and block rules that when a packet matches a pass rule, it creates state, so it remembers that connection. The problem is, if a connection here, how PFSYNC is what it's called, and we have another network between R1 and R2 just for these updates to the state table. And what happens is PC1 sends a packet with normal connection information. This is just going to be a web session, let's say. When it gets to R1, because CARP's still running, he's the master, so all that traffic goes to R1. R1 state table gets populated with that information. But you'll notice, R2's state table is empty, doesn't know about this connection. If R1 went down at this point, it actually would drop the packets from the existing connection, okay? If PC1 already went through the TCP three-way handshake, the send and ACK, and then did the HTTP GET request, you would drop those packets. They would go to R2 at that point and just be dropped. And PC1 would just have to reconnect through R2. But we want to avoid that. So to avoid that with PFSYNC, once we set this up, R1 and R2 state tables will be identical. So if R1 fails after PC1 makes state inside of his state table, R2 will get the packets from PC1 from the existing web connection, and he will not drop them because he has state for them, so he'll just let those packets pass right through. But in short, though, that's what CARP and PFSYNC are, how they work, and a little bit about why we need them in our network. So again, this was just our introduction of those. But in part 2, we're going to go on these OpenBSD machines and set all of this up. So I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope you are excited for part 2. And I'm Tyler with T-Tech, and I'll see you in part 2. Have a nice day.